here. It's Nani with Les Bailey and Associates, joined with Erik at Real Property Management and Tracy at Residential Mortgage. We are excited to bring you episode 15 of Alaska Real Estate Talk. And today's subject matter, we're going to be going over pricing. You're right, today's real estate market, both with landlords, leasing, and the residential market, and kind of the climate of different things to that effect. So,
and selling your house,
yeah, really. I mean, the selling climate as far as that goes, and pricing your house is probably the most important thing that you can do in both the rental market and the real estate market, is making sure that it's priced to move.
So what would be the first step somebody would take to price their house right? I mean, if I was going to sell my house, I would be like, who do I call? What do I do?
Well, you don't look at the tax records. I can tell you a lot of what you don't do.
That's a great point.
And sometimes by what you don't do, you find out what you should be doing. Don't use Zillow, don't use Trulia, don't use the tax records. None of those are true market value.
They're all bogus. They're educated guesses at best.
Right.
It's
great to give you a range.
Mm-hmm. It'll get you maybe in the rough ballpark.
Yeah.
Zillow didn't even know my fourplex was a fourplex. So, I mean, that's how good Zillow is.
It's a really good point, because a lot of people do use Zillow. It's a very popular website.
Well, what they want you to do is they're building their database. I mean, even though Zillow's like massive because they spent millions of dollars promoting it and stuff, they want the homeowners and the consumers to go in there, fill out their information, and what their house is, so that they can build their database, so that they can be better. They're just not better.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, as an Alaskan, we're a non-disclosure state for a reason.
Yep.
And I think my business is my business. What my house is worth is.
I think a lot of Alaskans feel that way.
Yeah. So
wait until the
Okay, guys, we're back. Sorry about that. Looks like maybe our subject matter was too hot.
You said government.
That's what it was. We got shut down.
So,
anyways, I don't know exactly where we left off, but it was the don't, and don't look at what your neighbors had their house listed for and those types of things. But what I would say is, do hire a professional.
Yes.
I've had people hire appraisers, because appraisers, give value and realtors give value. The way appraisers look at value is different than realtors look at value. So that's kind of a tricky little area.
So if somebody hires a real estate agent to come give them a value for the house, do they have to pay for that value? Do they have to pay for your service to give them a value, or do they only have to pay for your service if you end up listing the house?
That's a great question. As realtors, we're independently owned and operated, and we all do business a little bit different. Some realtors, if you are just looking for value, will charge a flat rate fee for value, and then they will reduce it on their, if you choose them to be their realtor. Most realtors, though, are happy to give market value in good faith to move forward with a relationship of using them to help you sell your house.
Right.
And so, I mean, there again, everybody runs their businesses a little bit different. But as a realtor, what we look at on, normal is, what homes have recently sold and recently within 6 months, because appraisers are also looking at the 6 month period. After 6 months, the data is no longer really relevant. Sometimes what I will do is, I'll look at data further back, but I can't necessarily use it. I can use it as supporting information, but I can't use it as my true comps. And then I like to look at what's under contract, so the pending homes that are in escrow. And then I also like to look at what competition is, because the competition gives us a good barometer of where we're going. There's a house, say that house value I think is $300,000. And the competition is selling, their house is at $325,000. Well, if that house at $325,000 has been on the market for 120 days and our average days on market is 30, they're probably outside of the realistic realm of what their house will sell for.
It would have. It's the. I tell people all the time when they're scouring through Craigslist trying to figure out what their place is rented for. So go to Craigslist, go find similar rental properties. Just always remember, Craigslist is asking prices.
And that's
they're not getting prices, because if they were getting that rent, they wouldn't be on Craigslist for long.
Yeah.
And that goes back to our topic then, pricing it right. What happens if you overprice your house for renting or selling?
Do you want to be amazed?
Yeah.
Most people,
Always.
most people overprice. They don't underprice. Surprising, right? It's guarantee is like getting back to Craigslist. If
Well,
you go
you want
onto
the
Craigslist,
most for your investment. And
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
I think
If
that's
you go to-
important.
if
It's
you
hard
go
to
to
test
Craigslist,
that.
yeah, if you go to Craigslist, just understand that most of the people are going to be a little higher than they're really going to get. So if you want to rent your place fast or you want to sell your place fast, go a little bit under what everyone else is asking.
Sure.
Because because the folks that went a little bit under aren't on Craigslist anymore because they rented their place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Well, no,
No,
I think that's great.
yeah.
I mean, especially the biggest thing, and we've talked about this before, I mean, it was kind of like a light bulb going off, is, okay, so, I mean, you're talking hundreds of dollars versus, thousands when you're on the
Thousands, yeah.
sale, so it's a little bit different, but, if you're listing your house for $1,600 a month for rent and it's vacant for 2 months, that's a lot of money you're losing if you would have just rented it for $1,500 a month. You just lost $30,000 or $3,000 by it being vacant for those 2 months, and that's real money that translates over. The same thing happens, in real estate on the sale end is, I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars. So if you overprice your house, over, like you said, price it just at or below where some of the other ones are listed for, because you've got to beat out your competition. It's a pricing war and a beauty contest. And you've got to outbeat your competition on the price, and you've got to look better than your competition on the price. And
So-
that's the biggest thing. It's the competition that you got to beat. And yes, you have to have supporting comparables that the appraiser can also support, because even if your competition is way above what the closed comps are, and you get above the closed comps, which is ideal, you're selling it above what the comparables recently have sold for, and you're under maybe what the other people think that they can get, especially in a market that's climbing up.
Yeah.
You still have to have an appraisal that supports that value.
Yep.
And
Sure.
nobody wants to renegotiate price after they're already counting their chickens before they've hatched.
Well, then what would you say to the people that just have their numbers so tight they can't afford to go lower on their sales price? What would you do in that instance?
Eric and I've actually dealt with a lot of these, and I mean, it's a sad situation. We've touched on this in some of our previous episodes where, specifically with the VA buyers, that was a huge one. That they roll all their costs into buying the house. They buy a house for $200,000 and they owe $209 when they close on it, and there again, that's an estimate. But so if they have to leave in 2 years, they have no equity, and so.
That was me. I was the brand new lieutenant with the brand new house because the Air Force said you'll be here for 6 years, and 6 months later I was packing boxes. And here I was at a brand new house on a VA loan. I owed more than it was worth.
Yeah.
And it happens. It can happen.
So what's your option at that point then?
So what we've done quite a few times that works really well is we'll co-list it. So what we'll do is we'll work in partnership with Les Bailey and say, okay, well, RPM's going to put it on the market for rent. Les Bailey's going to put it on the market for sale. And then let's say it does, let's hope it sells for the price that they want. But if it doesn't, we get it rented. What we'll do is we'll typically hold on to it for about 2 years. And then when that next lease comes due, we'll reach out to Les Bailey and say, hey, let's take a look at the equity. Let's see if we're in a place that we can sell, because that's what the homeowner wanted to do in the first place. I don't want somebody to be a client when they don't want to be a client anymore. Their goal is to sell. Let's get it sold, but sometimes that means renting it for a little bit to sell it, to build that equity.
And
First one to the finish line wins for the client. It's what's best for the client, So if renting it is best, then then let's get it rented. If selling is best, let's sell it.
And you and I were talking earlier, and you even mentioned that, like, for somebody that just can't afford their house payment in this moment, they could always rent a smaller place and then rent out their house and keep it.
Well, I think it's funny because, people have this like, oh, poor me mentality. Like, oh, I can't rent my house for what I owe on it. My mortgage payment is, $2,000 and I can only get $1,700 for rent or $1,800 for rent. Well, crikey, I mean, you committed to something for 30 years. And while the market shifts and change all the time, you're not the first person to feel this. I mean, it happened in the 80s. I knew multiple people that had gotten 2 and 3 jobs in order to support their family, support their mortgage payment. Not fun, but I mean, sometimes we just got to do whatever it takes, I think, to make things work for a short period of time, and it may be
Yep.
1 year, it may be 2 years.
Sure.
And if you have to pay $200 to make your mortgage payment after renting, yeah, that sucks. And I feel
here's a
really
way to-
bad for people when that happens. And you're building equity also
Yeah.
over time. And a lot of people that on the back end actually make a lot of money.
But
That's
You're
what
building
people
equity
make.
with someone else's money.
Yeah.
And that
That's
could
the big
still
thing.
give you an option and out rather than like going into foreclosure or short sale.
Well,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it gives you an option.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
because I mean, I don't know about you, but like will you work with a client that has had a short sale in the last couple of years? I mean, it's
I decline to answer that right now.
yeah. But I mean,
Yeah, it's a good question.
The great thing about the visual I give people all the time is, okay, so let's say, and it's very common that on a single family home, the mortgage versus the rent, there's going to be about a $200 somewhere in there disparity,
Yeah.
right?
Either on the good end or the bad end. Sometimes, you get to squeak
Yeah.
by, but yeah.
More than likely, you're going to be putting in about $200. Been there, done that myself personally. Okay, but say you had a magical piggy bank, and every year or every month you put $200 in, and at the end of 5 years, you get thousands and thousands back,
Oh,
way
you mean like
more
a
than you
retirement
put in.
fund?
Yes,
Oh.
exactly. because the other giant chunk of equity, that $5, $6, $7, $8, $1,000 of equity that's happening every month, was someone else's money.
Yeah.
Right.
It was the tenant's money, and that's the real power of real estate.
Sure. Yeah.
Is yes, the equity
all in
goes
your
up.
perspective.
Yes, homes that go up. But man, when you start taking someone else's money and paying off your things with it,
Mm-hmm.
now we're talking big boy money.
That's what gets exciting about the investment part. I mean,
Yeah.
you can do that. You can buy multiple homes and have somebody else pay down your equity. And
Yeah.
that takes, I think, maybe a not so great situation, and it's your perspective on making it like, okay, fine, this is this. And yeah, while I may
We're in
not
right now.
live in that, $300,000 home, now I may have to rent a, smaller home or buy a smaller home. I mean, that's not necessarily bad if you look at the 10-year plan or a larger
Sure.
plan or something to that effect. The other thing that we talked about were holding costs, during
Mhm.
selling time frame.
Yeah.
And I wanted to touch on that just a little bit is, what it costs to hold a house, on the market. I mean, the obvious thing is if you don't own it outright, every month that it's vacant, you have your mortgage payment if you're not occupying
Right.
the home. If you are occupying the home, obviously, then the holding cost is like just the pain in the butt of, getting it dressed, living on eggshells, keeping it prepped if you have kids and all that
Yeah.
other stuff. It's
Right.
stressful.
Yeah. The
Stressful.
showings. I mean, if you have your house on the market for 6 months, that's 6 months of showings.
So the easiest math is on a $1,500 a month rental. If you're every day you sit vacant, you're walking away from $50. So if you're asking 16, but you could get 15, every day you sit waiting for 16, when you could have gotten 15, is $50
$50
out the
bucks
door.
a day.
$50 you will never see again. Plus any utilities you're paying.
Yeah, right.
So it's and 15 is the middle. So if you've got a single family home that might rent for 2,300,
Mm-hmm.
now we're talking even more money every day you sit vacant. So you may pat yourself on the back when you got that really high rent price, but if you waited 2.5, 3 months to get it,
You
Yeah.
lost it all.
Where's
you
your-
easily
your first
you are
one?
you are
Yeah.
in the red. And we actually have a calculator we'll sit down and do when we do lease renewals. We'll
Right.
look at okay.
Quick question for you, because I'd asked Nani, what do real estate agents charge to go tell you what the value of your house is so you can sell it? What is the process for people that want to rent their house out? Is there a fee charge for you to tell them what they can rent their house for?
It's fairly easy to do on your own. I mean, I just posted the average rent prices of what kind of the trends. I posted that just a few minutes before our talk started. We can do it. We do it with clients where they're looking at property management as an option. Typically, they're kind of like, okay, do I sell? Do I
What
rent?
makes sense, yeah.
Right? We'll kind of say, okay, well, because I always like saying, go with the numbers, right? Don't go with the emotions. Go with the numbers.
Yeah.
And so then I'll give the homeowner, here's my numbers, here's RPM's numbers. Okay, Les Bailey, you give your numbers, and then let the homeowner make an educated decision from there. Typically, what I say is, if you want to know what your home will rent for, look on Craigslist, look at similar properties in similar condition, and go a little bit under. Because probably, like we're talking about, everybody on Craigslist is a little overpriced. That's asking, then it's going to negotiate down a little bit, and go from there.
I want to touch just a little bit on that too. Something as a homeowner, you said like, what if it's going to cost you to sell and you can't necessarily sell? It's interesting because sometimes, let's say the numbers are so tight that if they want to close, they might have to pay $5,000 to close, or $7,000 or $2,000 or $20,000. There's a wide range. I've had people that have paid, upwards into $50,000 to sell their house, and that's like, it's a bitter pill to swallow. Yet, when you're talking, in the smaller numbers, 2, 3, 5, or whatnot. Something to consider. It really isn't, because one, what happens after you've been renting that house for 2 years? Even if you have a great property management company, are you going to have to pay for new carpet? Are you going to have to do some fixing and patching and painting and all that other stuff? Well, you may have great tenants over time. There is there again holding costs to some of that, and if you pay $3,000 to close now, is it less of a stress and headache for you than paying $3,000 for carpet in 2 years?
Personally encountered that when I sold my house. We had to come to the table with over $3,000, but we had it listed for 3 or 4 months, and we were willing to do that because if not,
get it off the books, move forward, and you can open up your buying power.
It's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
Relative to the size of the asset you're moving.
Yeah.
That is not a lot of money. $3,000 to $5,000. Depends
on the goals, right?
Yeah, I've sold properties and got 6-figure checks. I've got properties right now that if I sold, I'd be writing a big check. It just depends on the property, and that's part of real estate. But $3,000 to $5,000, I would say, hey, suck it up, write the check,
especially if
get it sold if that's your goal, right? If you've always wanted to be a real estate investor, okay, let's talk. But if it's like, man, I really don't want to rent my house, because like you said,
Pain threshold of the consumer, I think, or the client is a big deal. Yeah.
Something that shocks a lot of single-family homeowners is, they get a tenant for, let's say 2 to 3 years, and they get back and it's not in pristine condition. Well, guess what? People lived there. Yeah. Right? That's why the laws say have normal wear and tear, because people living in a structure will create normal wear and tear. Sure. So you're probably going to write a $3,000 to $5,000 check at the end of 2 to 3 years. Right. Right? If people live there, right? Yeah. Because they touched the walls, they moved the light switches, they walked on the carpet.
They don't care about touching up the baseboard paint every year like you might. Like my sister-in-law, she goes around and she touches up the baseboard paint, and it keeps the house looking fresh and all that other stuff. And as a tenant, I don't care.
Yeah, they move their furniture.
Most tenants are really nice, but everybody likes to talk about the nightmare tenants, but most tenants are good people who take care of the house.
Right. Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, people living in a home causes normal wear and tear over the years. And I'm sorry, but $1,000 a year really ain't much. Right. It ain't much to maintain a huge asset.
No. So. I think we pretty much touched on what we needed to. Did you guys have anything else to add, or you want to?
Well, just to wrap it up, going back to the pricing it right and different thing, a couple key points that I think is important to take away is it is important to really look at the data, price it right. If you overprice it, you're going to lose money because you're going to end up reducing it. So if you reduce it $5,000, reduce it $10,000, depending on the price range, there's a ideal number that people will end up reducing, and that will cost you more time, because what happens is after it becomes shop worn, then a buyer wants more closing costs. There's more room for negotiation because the pain is of it being on the market. The sellers are selling their house for a reason, and buyers know this, and they know if your house has been on the market longer than the normal market time, then they have more room and more power to negotiate. Especially if they're working with a realtor. Realtors know this. So they are advising their clients, like, hey, the normal time frame for a home in the Anchorage market at between $375 and $399 is about 2 months. This house has been on the market for 4 months. They're probably getting antsy, and you can probably get closing costs. That could be about $7,000 plus the $10,000 or $15,000 you already reduced in price. Yeah. Had you priced it right up front, you could have gotten an offer within a few days on the market or a couple of weeks on the market and paid little to no closing costs. So that is the biggest thing that I want people to take away on the pricing it right part from a real estate perspective. I'll have market data posted on the website for you guys to look at in each price range.
And I'll wrap up by saying, well, now cross fingers, what we're seeing, because we did see the rental market kind of dip here in the last year. 16 was pretty rough on the rentals, but so far, and you can see I posted up on the Alaska Real Estate Talk page, but you'll see that trend line is starting to swing back up.
Yeah, I see
so
that.
let's cross fingers. It looks like things are starting to look up again. I think there was a lot of sort of a panic, but we feel like rent prices kind of hit their bottom and are maybe starting to climb again.
Seeing a lot more activity on the multifamilies for sure.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So
Wonderful. That's all great information.
I think we were talking about interest rates, and you said interest rates are great. What are they like? I think you said